are formidable.
I've waited for this moment.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that former champion and IBF #1 ranked contender in the bantamweight division, Mio Yoshida, has landed herself a stay busy fight late next month on the 25th against Mexico's own Edith de Jesus Flores. That sports a professional record of 7 wins with 23 losses. You heard that right. 23 losses, no draws, only one recorded knockout, having been knocked out 3 times in 30 professional bouts. 33 years old to Mio Yoshida, who's 38. It's the only conceivable advantage that Edith has over Mio, that she is some years younger. Sporting a professional record of 18 wins with 5 losses and no draws, no recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out. In 23 professional bouts, she's still biding her time and waiting for Shakhram Giyasov to give her the time of day. Currently, Shakhram Giyasov has every alphabet title there is to win, there is to fight for in the bantamweight division. And if Mio Yoshida is now fighting Edith, she's not fighting Shakhram. That would theoretically leave Shakhram Giyasov free to have a showdown with the former unified champion, the still unbeaten Ring Magazine and lineal champion, Dina Thorsland. And I can only deduce that if MVP did not get in contact with Mio for a fight against Shakhram, it's gotta be because they're making the Dina Thorsland fight for Shakhram, while Mio keeps busy with Edith, who's on quite the losing streak. Last in action in September of 2024, and having lost her last 8 professional bouts, not only is she on quite the losing streak, the night of she will not have fought in well over a year. So, needless to say, Mio Yoshida is expected to win. Mio Yoshida, who was last in action earlier this year in February against Beata Dudek, who she won a points decision over 8 rounds. That Beata Dudek fight was very much a stay busy fight, and so is this one. Who's promoting this? Small regional promotional outfit in Boston Boxing Promotions. That's where it's going down, in Boston, Massachusetts, at the Harborville High School. A victory for Mio Yoshida may seem all but a formality, but this is a necessary evil. Better that she get out there, fight somebody, anybody, while she waits for her shot at the big time, the chance to become a 2-time bantamweight champion. When that opportunity presents itself, so long as she holds her position, she wants to be sharp. You want to be sharp. You don't want to have to be shaken off ring rust the night of. She's already a few years older than Shakhram Giyasov. She doesn't need to be inactive also, assuming Shakhram is who she ends up challenging, because if they do make that fight between Shakhram and Dina, could be Dina that she ends up fighting for the belts. You don't have to overanalyze this one. You don't have to overthink it. Simultaneously, it is a necessary evil for Mio, staying busy whenever and wherever she can. We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. In men's welterweight news, Shakhram Giyasov calls for justice amid WBA uncertainty over Haney versus Rolly. And by all rights, Rolly should be fighting Giyasov. Shakhram Giyasov is called for justice as the WBA welterweight title picture remains unresolved, despite confirmation that Devin Haney will face Rolly Romero on May 30th in Las Vegas. As World Boxing News reported, Haney's return against Romero is now in place, leaving Giyasov, the long-standing WBA mandatory challenger, still awaiting his opportunity after close to 3 years. The Uzbek contender reacted to the situation in an update with WBN, making his position clear. "I hope that there will be justice," Giyasov said. Hope will not suffice, as he is now at the mercy of the sanctioning bodies, the World Boxing Association, that's happy to leave his career in limbo and his shot at the big time to allow another fight to happen, a bigger one. Giyasov has remained the WBA's mandatory challenger, while Romero explored other options, including high-profile routes that failed to materialize. Despite that status, no deal has been finalized for the ordered fight, with Haney now set to face Rolly instead. The reality of the lack of movement around the WBA order has again come into focus. Giyasov reiterated that his focus remains on belts rather than specific opponents, despite offering to face Ryan Garcia for the WBC title next. In a previous WBN interview, "I'm ready always for fights. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. The most important belts and the big fights." But what the hell was the point in fighting in all those WBA eliminators to climb up those ranks to become the mandatory, just to be left in limbo for close to 3 years. Even worse that the fight already got ordered late last year in October, and the WBA let Rolly Romero sit on that belt without satisfying that mandatory for how many months now? October, November, December, January, February, 5 going on 6 months. Giyasov also appeared to distance himself from the ongoing developments, suggesting he's not involved in the decisions being made. WBN asked if Giyasov or his team had any intentions of lobbying the World Boxing Association for Rolly to be stripped. I had no relation to him. I wasn't waiting for my moment when I would smear him. Giyasov added a brief confirmation when asked about his readiness to move forward. Of course, he added. It's more diplomatic than I expected him to be, given the circumstances. For now, Giyasov remains the division's longest-standing mandatory challenger as key decisions continue to move around him, resulting in what is, by and large, the weakest era of welterweight champions I've ever seen. Ryan Garcia's got a belt, Rolly's got a belt, and it's all due to chicanery. It's all due to those fighters being fast-tracked into opportunities they didn't earn. How we got to this point? The WBA literally manufactured a belt for Rolly and Ryan to fight for in their fight. They made up a belt out of thin air, a regular title, so that when Rolly wins the fight and boots, then full WBA champion drops that belt to leave the division. Rolly ends up getting elevated to full WBA champion, welterweight champion, having not fought an actual welterweight with a welterweight mandatory in the queue. And now, instead of stripping him for not complying with their order, the WBA's letting him negotiate a different fight. While this guy sits for 2 going on 3 years. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. And it's all bullshit. That's what former champion, now veteran trainer, Robert Garcia said about the sanctioning bodies, how they operate, and their politics. It's all bullshit. He recently sat down with the good people over there at the Spit Bucket podcast, and this is what he had to say.
And the bells, the sanctioning bodies with all this politics where somebody gets ranked number 1 who hasn't at that weight division for 4 years, or somebody that just came out of a loss and gets a title fight. Where's that number 1 guy? Where's that opportunity for the number 1 guy? So we don't see that anymore. It's all about money. It's all about politics. You know, in the 80s and 90s, when I became North America champion in 95, man, that got me to the top 10. Everybody knew that becoming national champion takes you to the top 10 in the rankings. Nowadays, nobody cares who the national champion is. It's because nobody cares about that anymore. You could have a good relationship with one of the presidents and they'll rank your fighter number 1. Or if it benefits them when it comes to their 3% they're going to make. Lindolfo has fought 3 title eliminators. Duarte has fought 2 title eliminators. Curiel's last fight were title eliminators. They're not getting no title shot. Lindolfo is the mandatory to fight Hitchens, but Hitchens signed with Sufa. We don't even know if that's going to happen. I asked Lindolfo, what would you do? If they still offer you good money to fight Hitchens for Sufa, or go for the vacant title. You know, the belt goes vacant. The thing they responded is, where do you think I'm going to get paid the most? So fighters right now, they're going after the biggest paydays, not the belts. Vacant title, they're going to go to purse bid. Whoever wins the bid, you guys are going to have to split up 50-50 or whatever. So you might end up with 200, 300 if somebody puts a good bid. If you fight Hitchens for Supa, you might get a lot more money. He's like, fuck it, I'll go for the money. He's had 2 or 3 title eliminators and he hasn't fought for the title. So he's lost that love for that belt. It's all, excuse my language, but it's all bullshit, man.
It is prize fighting after all. The ultimate goal of becoming a world champion is not just its intrinsic value, but the promise of marquee value, that perhaps if you become a world champion, you can start making more money, on the premise that you fight your way to the top, become a mandatory, fight the champion who hopefully is somebody that people know and somebody that people respect, so that if you beat them, they'll respect you. Then you can start making respectable money. That's the idea, what's supposed to be the system. But the system is broken. The system is often manipulated to favor some fighters over others. So tell me that a fighter like a Shakhram Giyasov or a Lindolfo Delgado, for example, wouldn't be better off going over to Zuffa. Well, if they do, they won't get the chance to fight for the title. Yeah, some of these guys ain't getting that chance now, but at least if they go over to Zuffa, they can make some money. It is prize fighting after all. The ultimate goal of becoming a champion is not just its intrinsic value. It's the promise of marquee value, a promise that the sanctioning bodies don't often keep. Because what's the point in fighting in all those eliminators, and what's the point in paying sanctioning fees if when push comes to shove, you don't get your shot? They give it to some other guy because he's a little bit more popular than you are, because they figure they'll make more from the sanctioning fees of somebody else's fight than yours. All while they tell me and you that Dana White and Zuffa Boxing are the bad guys for bringing forward a different infrastructure than the existing framework, when all it really is you're scared they're going to tap into your revenue stream, that the fighters are going to get tired of putting up with your bullshit and go over there. You don't get to make money off of them anymore. Dana White doesn't have to sit on a podium and say anything about you guys to make you look bad, because you do that all on your own. You left a guy waiting in the queue who fought in your eliminators and paid you the sanctioning fees for 2 going on 3 years? Many such cases, to the point where it's easy for a fighter to be disheartened by boxing as they knew it, that if there is now something different out there, it might be worth exploring. All the while, within the existing framework, the best aren't fighting the best, because Rolly Romero sits here today as a welterweight champion, having not fought a single welterweight. Ryan wasn't one. Ryan was new to the division, just like Rolly. And for losing to Rolly Romero last year, he got a title shot this one. You're telling me that Zuffa's what's wrong with boxing? Zuffa are the bad guys? I've long maintained that I don't think that Zuffa's gonna come into it and monopolize the sport of boxing because it's too big. There are too many moving parts and people have their allegiances, but what they can do is achieve some modicum of success in the lane that they occupy. This is why the promoters and the sanctioning bodies jointly are trying to gaslight me and you into believing that Rolly and Ryan are world-class fighters, world champions, all by depriving other fighters of opportunities that should go to them. That if they did, you know, Rolly might not have a belt right now, because I would pick Giyasov to beat him. Ryan might not have one either, because Ryan lost to Rolly. The sanctioning bodies have but one function within the sport, and that is to establish a pecking order that allows for the top talent to permeate to the top. If you're not doing that anymore because you're too busy doing favors for somebody else, somebody's fighter, who fucking needs you? This is the weakest era of welterweights I've ever seen, and it has everything to do with the blockade that both the WBC and the WBA have set up around their alphabet titles. You rather let Manny Pacquiao fight for it off a 3-year hiatus than Ryan Garcia after that off of a loss. You rather give Rolly a belt than Giyasov a title shot, and then wonder why boxing in America just isn't what it used to be. It doesn't have the same flair, the same appeal that it used to with your manufactured champions. Speaking of sanctioning bodies and what has been an unpopular move from the IBF, they have officially stripped Jai Opetaia of the title. Per an IBF statement, Jai Opetaia has now been officially stripped of his cruiserweight title. The sanctioning body withdrew sanction of Opetaia's title defense against Brendan Glenton just days before it was supposed to take place, when, in their opinion, it became apparent that the Zuffa belt was more than a trophy or token of recognition that it was supposed to be. Opetaia chose to proceed with the Glenton bout and thus loses his IBF title. What a mess. The boys over at ProBox reacted to the news as it broke earlier today.
Indeed been stripped by the IBF. So that settles that. Jai Opetaia has been stripped of his cruiserweight.
Officially stripped.
The IBF cruiserweight
so
title.
the IBF title is vacant now.
So credit
at
to
cruiserweight.
Credit to the IBF for holding their ground.
They're always the guys who do that,
Yeah,
though. If anyone does it, the first ones in line to hold and stick true to the letter of the law is the IBF.
Yeah, and to Jai's credit, he really was trying to unify the belts. You know, he had mentioned it. It was about, but this is what you guys want. This is what I talk about with Zuffa, dude. You're gonna go by their rules. You sign with them, you are gonna go by their rules, and that's it. You're not gonna have any options to discuss it and let's talk about it. There's pros and cons to every situation. That was going to happen. I mean, it was going to get interesting. We were talking about it. as far as, oh, maybe they're going to work together, maybe they're not going to work together. No, the IBF said, nah, bro, we're not working with these guys. And
now the question becomes: Does Jai and his team give up on their dream of being cruiserweight undisputed or undisputed in general?
Let me correct
or do
that.
They go vie for those belts?
Let me correct that. Jai has no choice but to give up that dream because you're in a Zuffa contract, and like I just said, there is no flexibility of movement. That is a dead dream. That's it. You are not unifying.
Well,
you're not
but to push back on that because they still do say like, well, we're gonna they said it for Jai. They're gonna allow him to fight for titles. Granted, he got stripped this time, but doesn't mean he can't go back.
But now
try and win it again.
Okay, so the other sanctioning bodies you say will do this. I mean, the writing's on the wall with these guys. You know what they're going to, even if they work with you now, they're eventually looking to phase you out. So the IBF realizes and says, you know what? No. But go ahead.
Listen,
Separately, it was Dan Canastota of CompuBox that pointed it out that Jai is also in jeopardy of losing his Ring Magazine title per their own rules, since he's not fought a top 5 ranked opponent since May of 2024 in Mayris Briedis through no fault of his own, because he's been pursuing those fights with those top 5 fighters, but as of yet, he hasn't had one. Now, it could turn out that the ruling panel over there at Ring Magazine might give Jai Opetaia a bit more consideration than the IBF just did. And they might, because Ring Magazine doesn't view Zuffa as any kind of a threat or someone who's looking to replace them like the IBF does. Get it clear. If the IBF chose to strip Jai Opetaia, it's not as simple as saying because he carries a belt they don't recognize. It's because of who his promoter is, which I think might constitute an abuse of power if Jai Opetaia's legal team can make the case. So Jai Opetaia is promoted by Zuffa Boxing, who already said they would allow him to pursue his dream of becoming an undisputed champion with the sanctioning bodies. This was discriminatory, prejudicial. It's not up to the IBF to decide what promoter a fighter is allowed to sign to. That constitutes a discriminatory practice that indicates collusion, because why should a sanctioning body care what promoter a fighter signs to, unless they're working with the promoters that rival that one. That rival Zuffa. They'll try to make it about the trinket, the Zuffa belt that he picked up while he was over there, but they never gave anybody an ultimatum for holding the IBO title, which they also don't recognize, which they also don't view as a threat, like they view Zuffa as a threat. Jai Opetaia's dream of becoming undisputed champion has died on the vine, caught in the crossfire of a promotional war that's far above his pay grade. And I feel for him. Because what was he supposed to do? Matchroom didn't offer him an extension. Zuffa offered him a deal that's paying him more now than he was making before, and for that, you want to castigate him on the premise that Zuffa's trying to replace you. Well, it doesn't help your case that they already said publicly they were going to let him get the other belts. Doesn't help your case that they observed all of your provisions, paid you your sanctioning fee ahead of time, had your belt on display. Doesn't help your case that it looks a lot like you stripped this guy because of who his promoter is, and I'm not sure that's within your field of operations, your jurisdiction. I don't know if you have the right to do that. A lot of the time, the sanctioning bodies empower themselves to make all sorts of kooky decisions, because oftentimes the victims of those decisions don't have the money to do anything about it. Whereas this guy, he's got Zuffa behind him. And they've got money. Lots of it. So we'll see what happens.